Hello, my friends. We are live. Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad you guys are here. First things first, type in the chat. Tell me if you can see me and hear me okay. This is our very first Ask Abby live stream. And I know I've done Ask Abby segments in the past. First, they were videos where I would compile like 3 to 4 questions and answer them at one time. And then they became like YouTube shorts / Instagram reels. But it was really hard for me to keep up with all of your questions because they were in so many different places. And I wanted to make sure that you guys actually got answers to your questions and that those answers were thoughtful and intentional and organized in one place so that you know where to find them and so that you can be here when I answer your question. So that was the whole reasoning logic behind changing the whole way that we're doing Ask Abby to a live stream segment. So this is an experiment. This is new. This is the first time I've done this and I'm really excited. So I'm really looking forward to this live stream and seeing how it goes and seeing if you guys enjoy it because I would love to continue answering your questions live in this format. So here's how this is going to work. This live stream is going to be 30 minutes long and we're going to spend the first 20 minutes answering questions that came in from the Ask Abby tier on Patreon. So if you're not part of my Patreon community, I highly recommend it and invite you to check it out. The link is below this video. And in that community, if you are part of the Patreon on the Ask Abby tier or higher, you can comment on the post for the live stream. So you can do this for the future next live stream that we do if you didn't do it already, and post your question. And I'm going to try to get as many questions as possible in the first 20 minutes. And then in the last 10 minutes of this live stream, I'm going to open the floor to the chat. So everyone who's still here on the live, you will type your question in the chat if you didn't get to submit it through Patreon, and I will try to answer as many questions as possible through the chat. But no guarantee on the chat questions because there will be a lot of them and I'm just going to have to pull some random ones. Okay, so I may answer your question at the end. Otherwise, I highly recommend checking out the Patreon because that's where I'm going to be answering questions from first. Okay, so let's get started. I'm really excited to dive into these questions and I have them right here, I believe. Let me see. I want to split my screen so that I can read them at the same time. Okay, first question comes from Catherine. Hi, Abby. I feel like there's not enough information about a more detailed process when it comes to editing my stories. I don't work with professionals and I like to edit on my own. Would you teach this topic more in depth in a video or training? I love this topic. I love the topic of editing. There's so much to talk about with editing. And what I would recommend if you are self-editing, anyone who is self-editing your novel, the first thing I'd recommend doing is going to my YouTube channel. Under my playlists, there is a playlist called Editing Your Novel. And in that playlist, it's really like a crash course, honestly. It goes from like revising the messy first draft to line editing to weak words that you should cut from your novel to the more nitty-gritty editing where you're really getting into sentence structure, making your descriptions pop and making your character voice shine. There's so many different aspects to editing. And in that playlist, you'll find like my best advice for self-editing. I also have turned that video content plus more content into a course on editing. And that's also available through my website at abbieemmonsauthor.com. So if you want to check that out, I highly recommend checking that out. But I'd also be happy to spend more time doing this, like talking about this with live trainings and videos in the future. Okay, next question is from Gaila. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, or Gailia. Again, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. You're writing a fan fiction. You said you outlined it, but your question is this: when do I know how to cut a scene and when to add one? I follow my instinct to do this, but your answers would help me to become better at this. Thank you. So when it comes to cutting a scene or keeping a scene, it can be a difficult choice to make, for sure. And what I like to ask myself is I like to approach this process usually in the second draft or in the revisions stage. So when you're in the first drafting process, you don't necessarily have to worry about like cutting scenes right away, right? Because this is the moment where you are just letting your creativity flow and having a free flow of thought. So if there's a scene that you're like, I don't know if I should cut this or keep this, I would err on the side of just keep it for now. And then in the revision stage, you can figure out, is this really serving the story or can I get rid of it? And the big question here is really asking yourself, if I cut this scene, does anything change? Like, is there actually an impact on the story, negative or positive, if we cut this scene? So that could be a good question to ask yourself about this. And really kind of getting down to like, what is the point of it? Is it serving the story in some way? Is it making us care about the characters and their struggle more? Or is it giving us deeper insight into some sort of conflict? So if yes to any of those questions, I'd say keep it. If not, if it's like nothing changes, this is just filler, this is just fluff, maybe we can get rid of it. Okay, next question comes from Julie. Your writing style must have improved over the years. What lessons did you learn these past few years that make you proud of yourself? What challenges did you encounter or do you encounter most today? That's a really interesting question. And I love this because your writing style is always changing. And I find this to be true for myself. I find this to be true for my process. My process is always changing. And what I've learned in recent years about my writing and my process is that I don't need to rely as heavily on the structures and frameworks and rules that I relied on at the beginning of my writing journey. And that's the exciting thing about when you learn more and you practice more and you start to evolve your writing process, you find you can kind of let go of the guardrails a little bit. You can let go of the wall. I think of it like figure skating. When you first start skating, you're like holding onto the wall the whole time. But once you get the hang of it, you can start to let go and you can start to skate more towards the middle of the rink and everything's okay. And you find, wow, I have more confidence in myself than I thought I did. And that's really a beautiful moment in the writing process. So that I think is what I've learned most recently is like letting go of the structures and the frameworks is okay. I can let go of that and I can have more freedom in my like creative flow of thought. And it usually turns out like even better. So yeah, evolving the process. It's a constant practice. Okay, moving right along here. A question from Bailey. Hello, Abbie. I'm currently working on writing a series that is going to be a minimum of 4 books. Your outline templates are only set up for 3 books. How do you recommend outlining at least a 4-book series? That's a great question. So I really want to make like an updated version of the story structure for a series because I feel like you can just make it extend as long as you want to. What I would say to this is going based off of my 3-act story structure for 3-book do to make it a 4-book series is just take the framework for book 2 and repeat it for book 3, and then take the framework for book 3 and make it book 4. So with that structure, we have like the inception, the journey, and the battle is kind of what I nicknamed those 3 books. And if you think about it being a longer journey, so it's taking 4 books to get to the final conclusion, we have the inception, then we have the journey, and then we have another journey, and then we have the battle. So it's really just extending that middle portion where you have your characters going on a journey, right? They're going to go on a journey in book 2, and then probably a more elaborate, different journey in book 3. And you're going to conclude things in book 4. So you can kind of like duplicate the 2nd book framework for as many books as you want, as long as you're always finding new conflicts, new struggles for your characters to deal with, new ways that they can be challenged and forced to change as a result of their journey. You're doing it right. And again, I'd love to make an updated version of that for a longer, like ongoing series that you don't necessarily have an end for. Next question is from Ginger. Hello, Abbie. I loved your video about coming up with story ideas, and I was wondering if you have a similar process for scene ideas, especially with planting obstacles and bridge chapters to fill holes in the structure. I haven't seen anything on this topic, and it would help out tremendously. Thanks in advance. That's a great idea. I actually love that idea for making a video like that. So I'm going to put that in my like video recommendations pile because that would be really fun to make a video like that. And that's something that can be super helpful, especially when you have a moment that you need to like bridge that gap and you don't want to write filler because you want it to be meaningful. You want every scene to matter, right? And oftentimes when I'm encountering this problem, I'll just say to this question before I make an actual video, like pulling this whole topic apart, I would say that what I tend to do when I'm hitting a roadblock, or I'm like, I have to bridge this gap between this scene and the next scene, is I try to ask myself, like, what can I make happen here that would be interesting to write? Right? It doesn't even have to be like, it has to serve a grand purpose and it has to, move the plot forward. Don't even think in terms of that. Just think in terms of like, what would genuinely be fun for me to write next? And oftentimes, what happens to me is I find, like, even though I'm trying to bridge a gap, maybe the gap doesn't even need to be there. Like, maybe we can just time skip, and we're at the next interesting thing. And we're just like skipping to the good part, right? Because even as the writer, we want to skip to the good part. We want to skip to the juicy stuff. And I find that in my process all the time. And when I skip to the juicy stuff, it's like, oh, I didn't even need extra stuff between that. So that's one thing to think about. But yeah, coming up with scene ideas, like the story ideas framework, I really like that idea. So I'm definitely going to put that in my topic suggestions box and come up with a video concept for that, because I feel like that's something we can dig into even more. Next question is from Lette. Hi, Abbie. I'm writing a duology, and I was wondering if you have any tips on how to make the character arc flow better and not feel choppy. So a duology is an interesting format because we have more room, obviously, than one book to make a character arc happen. But you have this opportunity to kind of have a game-changing midpoint at the end of the first book. This is something I see done really effectively with some duologies, is you have obviously a game-changing midpoint in the middle of that first book, but oftentimes at the end, you have a cliffhanger moment, right? That's going to pull the reader into the next book of the duology. And that cliffhanger moment is really important because it makes us interested to see what's going to happen in the next book. It makes us want to pick up the next book. And I think this is a great opportunity to make that character arc, like you said, flow better, is to bring them to a moment at the end of the first book that's like the catalyst for the next book. So you could see it almost as like the inciting incident for the next book. How is this cliffhanger moment going to leave this character in a new place that they have not been in yet, and maybe upend their entire world and set them on a new path for change in the next book? Just something to think about. That would be a good like question prompt to brainstorm with and kind of mull over, is like, how can we bring this character on a full journey, but then leave them at a place where like everything has shifted again and everything is like something has changed the game and they're forced into more conflict and different conflict, and it's really opening the door to that next book. So I don't know what that is for you, because every single book is different, but it's just a good thing to think about. Next question is from Gordon. Hi, Abbie. For the game-changing midpoint, I'm working with a surprising revelation that isn't completely true. The villain drops a bombshell on the main character, but he's really lying to the main character to manipulate him. And it works because it targets the main character's internal conflict. But how might I approach this without losing its impact later when the main character learns it wasn't entirely true? Well, I think you actually have the answer right here in your question. Is you said it works because it targets the main character's internal conflict. And that sounds like a powerful game-changing midpoint to me. And I don't think it would lose its impact. In fact, I think it would actually add impact, because if you think about it, it's like, okay, this game-changing midpoint is a lie, but the character believes it's true and it changes the game for them. So it impacts their internal conflict and changes things. Maybe it upends their entire world. I'm not sure how devastating of a revelation this is for them. But then at the end of the book, when it's revealed that that wasn't actually true, that could be like another shocker moment for them, right? It could be, it doesn't have to feel like a gimmick, right? So I don't know what exactly your game-changing midpoint is, but let's just say, for example, for the sake of illustration, that the villain tells the main character that like somebody they love is dead, okay? That's like, oh my gosh, shocker, game-changing midpoint. And then at the end, the villain tells the main character, or the main character finds out like that was a lie and this person is actually alive and they aren't dead. It doesn't feel like a gimmick because it feels like you set that up with motives. Like the villain had a motive, the main character had a motive, and then at the end it's revealed that they're not actually dead, and it's like, oh wow, shocker again. This now changes the game again. So I think as long as you're keeping that impact, that personal impact on the main character, you're good to go. I think you know what you're doing, and I feel like the answer is right there in the question. Natalie asked, tips for introducing supporting characters quickly and efficiently, please. Yeah, introducing supporting characters can be difficult. My tips would be, first, don't introduce too many in the same scene. That can be very difficult to keep track of, especially if it's like chapter 1 and you're introducing like 5 or 6 characters in one scene. That can be very disorienting. I would start by first introducing like just a few and try to tie them to like what is the personal relationship they have with the main character or the point of view character. So if we can shortcut things like by saying my mom, my sister, my best friend, my bully, my crush, whatever, we can kind of shortcut the relationship and see who this character is in relation to the point of view character without having to like go into full backstory like, oh well, Fiona is my best friend, we've known each other since 2nd grade, and we don't need to like know all this backstory right away. We can have like really quick, precise connections made, but not too many, because you don't want to overwhelm your reader. So I would say err on the side of not too many introductions all at once, and you're good to go. Next question is from Monica. I'm going to try to go fast so I can answer as many as possible. What are your thoughts on author websites? It's hard to decide what to put on there when you don't have any published works yet. Good thought. I think author websites are important to have. I think it's really important to have an author website and a presence online, even if you don't have any published works yet. What you could put on your author website in the meantime is just like an author bio and some of the things that you're working on. So maybe if you have a blog, you could tease a little bit about the things you're working on. You can usually make a blog portion of your website, or you could just put up a section of your website with like a little bit of a teaser of what you're currently working on. And maybe some of your favorite books, maybe some of your book recommendations, maybe some film recommendations, just like letting the world know a little bit about what kind of stories you're into and what you'll probably be writing about in the future. And you don't even have to nail down exact projects that you plan to publish first. You just want to give your readership a little bit of a flavor of who you are, even if that's just writing a bio and having like a 1-page website. It doesn't have to be elaborate. And I'm going to do a video sometime on building an author website, so stay tuned for that. Okay. So here we go. Next question is from Capri. Hi, Abbie. For a new book, I'm in the stage of developing new characters. For the first time, I plan on writing about a friend group of at least 5 people. Do you have any advice on how to come up with an entire cast of characters at once? It's so funny because we're just talking about introducing multiple characters, but you're talking about just the character development part. So I would say for coming up with a bunch of characters at once, it can be tricky for sure. I would first think about their relationships. Okay, so if it's a friend group, then we want relationship dynamics, and that's what makes it fun. That's what makes it interesting to read about. That's what makes it dynamic and juicy and just fun to read. So what brings depth to the relationship is the relationship dynamics. So first figuring out like, what does this character contribute to the dynamic? That is something that I would figure out almost in tandem with like their personality and their conflict. I was actually doing this recently for a group of 4 characters and trying to find like, okay, what is it each one of them brings to the dynamic, to the relationship, and what they bring to it. It's almost like their archetype. So you could even like use an archetype system if you wanted, like Jung's archetypes, like, the mother or the ruler, the jester, whatever. So you have like maybe a character who is like the mom of the friend group and they're always looking out for the other people. Or you have a character who is like, the lighthearted, funny one who's like the comic relief. Figuring out what the dynamic is and how they all contribute to this dynamic and make it feel like a real lived-in friendship that is going to serve you so well. So I would recommend starting with that and leading with that, but also having like developing their characters, their personalities, and their conflict also. And I think you'll find it interesting how the conflict comes out of their like group dynamic, right? Comes out of and springs from what they bring to the group. Okay, so there's a few more questions that I didn't get to, but I am going to grab a few from the chat, and then if we have extra time, I'm going to answer the other ones. If not, I will answer them within Patreon, like written responses. So I wanted to get to you guys and open up the floor from the chat so that I can answer some questions here as well before we have to hop off. So first, thank you for the super chats. I'm going to grab those first because you guys are so generous to donate to this channel, and I really appreciate that. So I don't want your question to go missed. So let me read those first. Sam I Am gave a super chat and said, spoiler alert, I'm from the future and can tell you everyone does indeed love this format and would like more of these. Yay. Thank you. That's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. And thank you for the super chat. Cosmic Latte gave a super chat and asked, how do you know if your character is active versus reactive? I love that question. So your character can be both. I want to start by saying they can and should be both active and reactive, but the reaction comes first. Okay, so when something from the plot, like an external conflict, happens to them, like they get in an accident or there's some villain like trying to attack them. Okay, that's an external movement of the plot, but they're going to react to it first and then take action. So the reaction happens first, and that it's like their knee-jerk reaction, right? How would they react to this event? Maybe before they even have figured out like their own feelings about it. That's more of an instinctual thing. And then once they've had time to like process what just happened, that's the moment of action. So I like to think of it sort of like the inciting incident versus the impossible choice. This is like the best way to think about it. When you're thinking about the 3-act story structure, you have the inciting incident, which pushes your character outside their comfort zone. And then after that, you have the first plot point, or what I call the impossible choice. And that's really the moment where your character has time to think and process what just happened with the inciting incident and decide what their next step is going to be. So that's their action moment, right? So the reaction maybe happened right after the inciting incident. Maybe they were scared or nervous or upset or frustrated. And then the action happens at the impossible choice. So all throughout your story, your character should be going through these like sequences of reaction, action, reaction, action. And anytime that they are making active decisions, they're an active character. So as long as they're making active decisions, they're not a passive character. Okay. Next question is from, I can't read your whole username because it's getting cut off. I'm sorry. Raversion, I can't see it all. I'm sorry. Hi, Abby. I was curious which you like most. 1, discovering halfway through a story about the past/backstory of a character. 2, learning about it in the end or seeing it in the beginning. That's a great question. And all 3, honestly, can be effective depending on how you want to utilize it and what kind of story you're writing. So my personal favorite is when I first care about a character because of something in the beginning. Like I have to first care about a character. My personal favorite is when I care about them from the start, but I'm really curious about something about their past and I don't quite know all of it. And then halfway through the story, I start to pick up the pieces and learn those, like the full picture. That's my personal favorite. And I've seen all 3 of these done well, but I think that the best is either seeing it at the beginning or having curiosity and empathy for this character at the beginning and then learning it as we go through the story. I think both of those can be effective. The second one is harder to pull off for sure. Like it requires more thought test to go into it because you want to make your character likable, right? And make your reader care about them without necessarily revealing every single thing about them. And that can be challenging, but you can do it for sure. Another super chat came in from Cosmic Latte. I keep changing and second guessing my outline. Any advice for a chronic perfectionist who keeps getting stuck in the planning or outlining stage? Yes, absolutely. My advice would be to just write something, like write forward. I know this is not what you want to hear, because I am a perfectionist too, and I know how much you can struggle with this. I know that the struggle is real when you keep getting stuck planning and outlining and overthinking. And the thing is this, the more you wait and put it off and plan it and outline it and think, I'm not ready, it's almost like becoming more and more intimidating as time goes on, right? Like, you can tell me if you feel this way, but I know I've felt this way in the past. Like the longer I prolong actually writing the book or starting the process, the bigger and more intimidating it seems. And oftentimes when we just sit down and we start doing it, even if it's messy, even if it's not perfect, it feels less intimidating. It's like, "Oh, I've got this. Why was this intimidating me? Why was I overthinking this?" Because it's actually, like, way easier and it's way more accessible and it's way more, like, you've got it so much more than you think you do. Like, you're so much more capable than you think, and it's actually in a better place right now to just start working on it than it will be in, 6 months if you keep planning it. Sometimes when we wait too long, it's like the thrill is gone. After a while, it's like you have kind of built it up to be this thing that's so intimidating in your mind that you can't take that first step. So I would say just take the first step and see how it feels. That would be my advice. Okay. Grab a few more questions before we wrap up here. Let's see. Chloe Hannah asked, Abbie, I'm wondering how to make your character more relatable and less cringy. So it can be difficult to make your characters relatable. I agree. But as far as making them less cringy, what is it that you really feel is cringy about them? Like, is it that they feel cliche, that they feel like they don't have deep enough conflict, or they're not relatable somehow? However you feel this character is like not impressing you, I would say try to ask yourself, like, what would it be about a character that would make you fall in love with them? Like, if you opened a book and you were like, I love this character, right away, there's something about them that I just love. What would that thing be? And sometimes you can look to like your favorite books, favorite movies, and pick out these character traits. I do this all the time. I will like sit down and like analyze this about myself. Like, what is it about that character I like? And I start just like making a bullet point list. Like, well, I like that she's, smart and sassy, but she's also really caring and loving. And she, looks out for her family. She cares about her family before she puts her family first before anything else. And that's likable. And she like stands up for people who can't stand up for themselves. I like that, but I also like that she's got like a witty, sarcastic sense of humor. So I'll just like start making this list about just any character that I like. And then I can take some of those traits, because those are just very generic, broad traits, and I can sprinkle them into my main character or whatever character I'm writing, and automatically makes them more likable to me. And if a character is likable to you and you enjoy writing them, you're going to have so much easier of a time bringing this story to life. So hopefully that helps. Let's see. Question from Mariak, is that how you say your username? I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. Hey, Abbie, any tips on how to pace the reveal of a plot twist, lead up, and the scene itself? That is a great question, and it's a question I'm going to answer in depth, like in incredible depth, this Sunday, because I am doing a live training on this exact topic, and I wanted to actually tell you guys about this. I forgot to say it at the beginning, but I'm doing a live training this weekend on the art of the plot twist, is what it's called. So how to craft those surprising reveals and plant clues hidden in plain sight, and just like write jaw-droppingly good plot twists. This is a topic that I have not covered in depth yet, so I'm really excited. And I have the link to that live training in the description box below this live stream. So if you click on the description box, pop it open, scroll down, you'll see the link to save your spot at the live training. It's happening this Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's February 1st. And I'm really excited to get into this topic. This is something that I've touched on a little bit with the suspense and tension training, but this is going to be just about plot twists and setting up big reveals, like laying the foundation for them and planting clues hidden in plain sight. And I'm excited to get into this topic. So that live training will answer your question better than I can right now. So I highly recommend signing up for it. The link is below. Okay, let me answer a few more questions. I know there's so many questions, guys, but there will be opportunities to have these questions answered in the future, so don't worry. Let's see. Hazel Hara asked, any suggestions for staying dedicated to a story? And also, how do I do pacing? I'm a teen writer and it's all so intimidating. Yes, it is very intimidating. And don't worry, you're not alone. All of us have felt intimidated at some point. Like, even the best of the best selling authors have felt intimidated by writing. So you're not alone. But as far as staying dedicated to your story, I would say first ask yourself, like, why do you love it? Why do you love writing? Why do you love showing up every day and dedicating your time to this story? And finding your why and writing it down, even if you're writing on a piece of paper, on a sticky note, or on your desktop background, even writing down your why this story matters personally to you will be so, so helpful with dedicating yourself to it. And maybe it's something simple. Maybe it's like, this story is fun and joyful, and I think that there needs to be more joy in the world. Or maybe it's the character in this story is learning a lesson that I wish I had learned years ago. Or maybe it's, this is the book I wish I had growing up. Okay, so finding like your deeper reason, your why for doing this, and then writing it down and keeping that present in your space, I think will help you so much to stay dedicated. And then as far as pacing goes, I have a video on pacing that I would recommend checking out. If you type in on YouTube, Abbie Emmons pacing, it will pop right up. It's more about descriptions, like pacing on a scene level. But when it comes to pacing for, I have two videos on this actually. That's why I'm like stuck in two different directions here. I have two videos. One is about pacing on more of a broader level, like fast pacing versus slow pacing versus montage pacing. And then one is about pacing with like actually writing descriptions. So if you type in Abbie Emmons pacing on YouTube, you will find both those videos and they go into pacing in depth. It's a good like crash course, especially for newer writers. So I highly recommend checking that out. Okay, I'm gonna grab one more question because we are down to the wire here. Let's see. Let's see. Christmas Cat, I believe is how I'm supposed to say your username, asked, I'm a new writer and I was wondering if you could help me find the best time or method to begin my story. Answer me, please. I will answer. So for any writer, even if you're a new writer or a seasoned writer, the best method or way to begin your story is just to start. Because especially if you're a new writer, you haven't really discovered fully your process yet. And every writer's process is unique. And the only way to discover your process is to just start doing it. And I know a lot of writers who will overthink the process and they're like, oh, well, I need to have like the perfect way of doing this before I can begin. But you don't need that. In fact, you can't really begin until you begin, if that makes sense. Like you have to just start writing to see how it's going to work for you, to see what kind of process is going to be best for you. And that process is going to evolve and change over time. Like I said earlier in this live stream, my process has changed a lot over the past 10 years, and it's great. It's serving me in new ways that it hadn't before. And the only way to learn your process is through experience. So get the experience of writing by just showing up and writing and enjoying yourself and find what works for you. So a lot of writers, especially new writers, can get intimidated by that and they can self-sabotage by constantly uprooting themselves with new ideas, new shiny plot bunnies, and getting distracted. But long-term, that's not going to make you feel accomplished and fulfilled. Like you need to finish something, even if it's just a short story. Okay. So maybe start with that. Maybe start with, I'm just going to write a short story and it can be 5 pages and you'll feel such an incredible sense of accomplishment just by seeing that process through and finishing that story. So that would be my advice to that. Thank you guys so much for joining me for this live stream and for asking all these questions. I'm sorry I didn't get to answer all of them. You know I would love to, but if you want to guarantee to have your question answered, you're going to want to go to Patreon. Okay, so the link is below this video. That's where I grabbed the first 20 minutes worth of questions from, was from the post in Patreon. And when you join at the Ask Abbie level or higher to get the live training pass, it's the next tier up, but I highly recommend that too if you want to watch the plot twist training this weekend. You can submit your questions to the Ask Abbie show, and I will go ahead and answer those questions in the next live stream. Or if I don't get to them in the live stream, I will answer them with like a text reply in the post. Okay, so I'm going to do that for the questions that I didn't get to on this live stream because I want to make sure that everyone gets their question answered. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope I was able to answer your question and give you a little bit more guidance into the writing process, a little more insight and help along the way. I know writing can be a lonely art, so we're all in this together. We're all here for each other. And I so appreciate your support of this channel and of everything that I do. Again, please come to my live training this weekend. It's happening Sunday, February 1st at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. I hope to see you there. It's all about the art of the plot twist, and I'm really excited to dive into this topic. So if you're interested in that, check it out. The link is below to save your spot. Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday. And as always, happy writing and rock on.